This episode of Super Pulp Science has been brought to you by the Veiled Sagas. You can purchase them signed at Ravens End Books.
Attention, citizens! It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I'm here with my long-suffering co-host, known the world over as Chasing Artwork. It is Justin Curry has returned to the podcast. We did a few without you. We did a few without me. It's crazy. We also have producer extraordinaire Dan Vadeboncoeur, and dear listener, this is the sound of a big stack of books, because we have the author of The Wrong Side, Black as Night, Bloodied, and Wild Things, Mr. Z.F. Sigurdsson, but we know him as Zach, is on the show to talk about writing Icelandic noir, fantasy, fiction, madness, and your upcoming adventure to Iceland.
Yes.
As well as your further adventures in writing fiction. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's
so weird being here after listening to so many episodes. And because I've known all of you guys for so long, give or take, this is like, it feels much more like, hey guys.
I was trying to remember. You've been on the show before, though, haven't you? Didn't we have you on here?
Show has been going on a long time.
Dear listener, I'm sorry.
I was
gotten away from us.
Jonathan's podcast.
So maybe that's what I'm thinking of, because you were in this room.
Wasn't there an episode where you guys were doing this kind of weird writing thing and we were writing 24 hours a day or like marathon writing?
Then 24-hour
Were you not there?
Yeah.
24-hour comics. Yeah, wasn't it?
Oh, the 24-hour
No,
comics
no.
event. No, you were not there for that. But you did come to a quote-unquote masterclass workshop that we gave at the studio.
Mm-hmm.
And you were listing all the people who were there for that one at your book launch, which was recently at our favorite horror bookstore in Winnipeg, Ravens End. Who was there? I was trying to remember them all after you said it.
Like in the crowd?
Yeah, no, at the event where you came here and then joined the cadre of the Friends of the Studio.
So, I mean, it must have been 2018 when we did, or it must have been early 2019 when we did the workshop, where it was you, Justin, and Samantha Bico posting, and that is when I met Lyndon, I met Jonathan Ball, I met Willow Press, and all of us have published to one extent or another, or have been involved in creating, because you guys made the terrible mistake of saying you don't have to wait for a traditional publisher. You have all the options in front of you to self-publish, put it online. You have all the options in front of you to do whatever you like to get your art out. And
so in 2018, we told you should do it yourself.
yes.
Justin, now that it's 2025, is that still good advice? Did we send him astray? Have we done a bad thing? Is this a chance to be held accountable?
Because even if a publisher came out of nowhere,
Yeah.
like burst out of their closet and goes, "Hey, writer, I want to like publish your book," everything that you've learned doing it yourself is going to arm you so much better for that opportunity than if you were to just go in blind, right? Like everything you've learned to do self-publishing and doing this, you're going to need to know when a big publisher does come knocking, right? They're going to want you to do all these things. Go on book tour, do book chats, like
Get on the news.
I know how to do it all myself.
Yes.
God help us. And now I'm meeting through my program in Iceland that we're going to discuss. I'm meeting authors who are now in the program asking, how does self-publishing work?
Yeah.
Because they've only been traditionally published. They don't know how all this other stuff works. And they are bristling to one extent or another against not having 100% creative control. So now I'm getting these questions and just relaying, here's what the crazy Winnipeggers do. because I'm saying it to Americans and Europeans who don't really realize this island of creativity that we've cultivated.
The other thing is too, like,
Mhm.
there is such a range of publishers and getting published, right? And there's a good chance that you have done better with your books under your own steam than a lot of these people who sign deals with, there's just such a range of publishers out there, and a lot of them, it's not really a way to make a financial windfall, right?
Right.
As much as they might make it like books are hard no matter what route you go.
Books at best are a meaningful struggle.
Yeah.
And if you're going to struggle meaningfully, it's good if you, especially when you're starting out, I think it's good if you learn how all the steps are done.
Yeah.
So there are stigmas against self-publishing, and it's important that we speak them. Speak thy names, right? People think, oh, well, that means that your cover is going to be crappy. It means that the print quality is going to be terrible. It means that you'll have no distribution. It means that you'll only sell 10 copies to your friends and family, and you'll have to sit on 2,000 copies that you printed yourself. Like, these are the standard, like, don't do it. And we have many times cautioned against and expressed how to avoid those downfalls. So let's talk production a little bit first.
Yeah.
In so much as another regular criticism of self-published work is that it has not withstood peer review. It has not had a good editor go through it. It has not been copy edited. It has not been laid out properly. There isn't a proper book designer involved. I happen to know, this is a leading question. It's a softball question. I happen to know that there's a check mark beside each of those. You got a lot of people involved in getting this
I made sure every single one of those steps was done to the fullest that I could both afford and like could coordinate myself. So there are different editors for all of these because it's 4 books, different artists, but the same graphic designer for all of them, who is a good friend of mine, Chloe Brown, who is a working graphic designer in the city. We have agonized to get all this. Bloodied is the first one is the only one I didn't do extensive beta reading for, but they've all been beta read out the wazoo. The Wrong Side is a little bit different because it's the smallest, and that one is all of my flash fiction. So the story with The Wrong Side being kind of like the spin-off of the other 3 or the predecessor to the other 3 is that every week for a year, I think it must have been like that 2018, 2019 period, every week for a year, I posted a flash fiction on my website for the world to see. And I ended up with, if those keeping track, there's 52 weeks in the year, there's 80 stories in this book.
Wow.
So some weeks there were doubles, some weeks there were triples, and the whole idea is that I would be on a trip, or I'd be out in the city or out in the country, and I would sit down and I would let that creativity flow and write a 1-page story.
How much better did they get from week 1 to week 52? Like, you look back at week 1 and...
I do, but I never tracked them in that way.
Okay.
How did you track them? I'd be curious to know, because that's my first thought was like, oh my God.
I know I have...
If you do have anything, you get pretty good.
I know I have the document somewhere where they are in that chronological order, but in the book, they're in thematic order. So they're mixed up. They're mixed up based on like the setting and the stories and such. So I do feel that it did get better.
Yeah.
The Wrong Side is the type of book, dear listener, that my father and I call a sipping book.
Yes.
You can just sit down for a minute, open to like a random piece of it, and just have a sip, because the stories are like these short little
snippets.
They're snippets. They're flash fiction. Is what they're intended to do is just be a flash of a story or an idea existing for a moment, and then you can move on.
And everyone's calling this the coffee table book or the my mom likes it book, because I'm a fantasy, horror, sci-fi writer, and so some of these stories get pretty intense and pretty dark and wild, but The Wrong Side, there's usually something for everyone.
Chips! Thank you! How'd you know about the building?
I heard barking, thought I smelled gas. Oh, I hope it's okay. I engineered a prosthesis for Chips while I was sprinting down the stairwell. Little hip joint assembly with a drop ring lock and an anterior pelvic band.
God, you're noteworthy.
I just live by the ABCs. Adventurous, brave, creative.
So these books, Bloodied Wrong Side, Wild Things, and there's one more. I'm missing one. Where's the one with
Black in the Night, Bloodied,
yeah, the
Wild
one more.
Things, Wrong Side.
Because I'm missing.
No, I just threw it over here.
Oh, wait, sir. Okay.
Anarchy.
These are all. It is total Anarchy. These are all part of a series that you call the Veiled Sagas.
Yes.
Now that we know that you brought on a team of people, you had editors, you had beta readers, you got people to do your covers. How or when did the idea that this was all part of a big shared tapestry of stories occur to you? Was that something that came after or before?
It was kind of a thing that was always there because the whole idea of the Veiled Sagas was just like this core idea of all the hidden world fantasies that existed. The modern world is always so isolated, and it's never like, how is the modern world and modern culture and history messing up the fantasy world? And so it does become this weird mix of genres and alternative history and horror and fantasy. And because my education and passions are in history and politics and material culture and archaeology, there's always that like tactile level to it. But there was always this like, there is this id Veiled Sagas book that will one day get written in a better way, that will get refreshed. It means that I am slowly working on another draft of that one, and that was like the first big ugly fantasy book that many fantasy fans do. One day it'll get brought back to life.
Let's not step over that.
Yeah.
We deal a lot with the dear listener who is writing their first big fantasy epic. Justin often and wisely suggests
You're not ready for it.
you're not ready. Do a small one. Get it finished. Do some flash fiction. Do a short story. Do a short comic. I also have the trunk novel. That was my first big sweeping epic. No, I've ended up carving slices off it like halal, like just little pieces, and they've all become other books and other things. Like it sort of peels off. So you've got one, but you haven't abandoned it.
No, not at all, because it is kind of, I still think there's so much worth in it. It's just, as Justin puts, I wasn't good enough for it. Right. But I do think that there is still enough there. I just have to figure it out. And the Veiled Sagas were always just still more of those basic ideas of fantasy world, but modern keeps interrupting its world.
Can you talk about your influences that are more, like you talked about the real world influences, archaeology and such, but what are some like fantasy and creative influences?
Well, like I always, like for the general listener, I always say, like, if you like with The Witcher, if you like Game of Thrones, if you like Arcane, you can get something out of this. Mm-hmm. But the specific influences between stories are often like worlds apart. Some stories are a noir story set in this big fantasy world, or a samurai story in this big fantasy world. And I've always been worried about, oh my God, is there too much tonal dissonance? But what I keep getting told from others, and this is not something I noticed for myself, it was just how I write, is that I write it at a consistent level, at a almost mundane enough level. Like I'm not doing big exposition spiels. I'm allowing the world to breathe on its own terms, and things can work out and people can put the pieces together themselves. So like some stories, I'm quite honest with, this is clearly a very modified version of Jaws or Yojimbo, or Fistful of Dollars as the Western equivalent is. Or I throw like a kaiju monster in, which then will always have like Jurassic Park and Alien and Predator thrown in. Or there is just Conan stories where it's a barbarian fighting, or it's like Warhammer has always had a big influence on me because I've been a Warhammer miniature painter since I was the weeest of lads. So like that style of orcs have always been very dear to my heart, but I've always been very careful about copyright.
Well, and that's the thing, right? your influences must be eclipsed in order to make anything of your own, right? We had a recent episode where we talked about the difference between opinions and ideas, right? And so you have to take your opinion about those things you love and transmute them a little bit until they become an idea worth discussing on its own.
Or Greg, you've mentioned before, write that fan fiction, like write that Warhammer fan fiction, and then in the second and third pass, like scratch off the serial stuff, right? So it's not related anymore. But use that as, a springboard. If it gets, if it gets the story juices flowing, then that's what you got to do.
And the thing I always
looking at you, 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah. Well, the thing I always say is like, as I learn like history of the sagas of like classical literatures, like that style of inspiration has always existed.
Yeah.
Where like the Aeneid is the Odyssey, is the Roman fan fiction version of the Odyssey made for political and social reasons. And those kinds of flows are identified in the Icelandic sagas, in Norse mythology, and in all of this other literature.
They probably thought nobody would ever put those two together. So world apart.
Well, because literature at that time was an aristocratic thing, where it's like, oh, they're educated. They know their reference. And then when you get like...
Well, and also they were oral histories too.
Exactly.
So you actually needed the guy to know and have memorized it. You patronized him. Your family paid for the upkeep of the person who memorized the poem that they would call out, they'd roll you out. And, the bardic tradition, and then all of those things are kind of connected and lead then, I think, in our conversation quite nicely to your academic pursuits. Why don't you describe for the dear listener the problems of your education and how they have influenced your writing?
Well, I got my Bachelor of Arts at the U of M in politics and history. And naturally, I've been working as a cook and a laborer, and I have done reporting, and I've done basically every other job under the sun to make ends meet. And then as all of our lives have opened up again, and we've all been trying to struggle with this new world that we find ourselves in, a lot of us have been really struggling, and I just knew I needed to make a change for me, for my partner, for my family. So I started looking to see what educations are out there. And I'd been to Iceland before as a part of like a exchange heritage program called the Snorri program, and I saw that they offered a Viking and Medieval Norse Studies master's program. So I am moving to Iceland in 2 weeks from this recording on August the 9th, right after the Icelandic Festival, to begin a 2-year master's program where I get to study the sagas and Viking archaeology and history as an academic career. And fiction writing will always be a part of it. There is no barrier between these things. They all flow into each other. For good and bad. We'll see what the academic supervisors say about my style of writing. But now I am going on this next big adventure with my beloved partner to see more of the world.
Bum, bum, bum.
It's pretty exciting.
That's kind of incredible, actually. I'm Icelandic on my mother's side.
And your sons could go on the Snorri program.
My sons could go on the snoring program. That's true. They right now they're in the snoring program of sleeping till noon because it's summer.
Ground control to Major Tom. Can you hear me, Major Tom?
How do you think you're going to be able to manage whatever the next writing project is, which will be inspired, whatever you think is going to happen once you get there? That's going to influence your next project. You have the academic needs. You have uprooting your whole life to go somewhere new. You've got a new facet for living with your partner in another place. You've got all of those things on top of you. How are you going to try and manage your creative side, which I think is maybe the least important in many respects of what needs doing while you're away?
Well, I did my most writing when I was in university or just out of university, because I would finish an essay and I would already be in writing mode, but I would be so tired of having to go back and forth between the textbooks and go straight into writing fiction. And it wasn't until after university that I was able to finish like that big that big ugly fantasy book, as I call it. But I'm not worried about that separation, and certainly the last few years in our lives have been difficult and a struggle. And my writing, like, I've not been writing actively for probably a year, but last week was probably the first time I got 200 words down, so I was really thrilled about that. And I know the muscle is still there, and I'm going to keep working at that muscle.
Yeah.
And I'm also, because Iceland is such a culture of literature, where everyone reads, it's the most like statistically published nation on the planet. It'll be irresistible not to be writing. And I already have this core of ideas and inspirations related to what I'll be seeing there and what I'll be working with, that it'll just like give me that extra bump to get certain stories done.
Could you lay out for us like an ideal day in your writing process? So like what's the best? Do you get the most done in the morning? Do you work in the evening? Do you like having other things in your day besides writing, or do you like just writing and having nothing else? Tell us about process.
My best days in years past, because life got busy, life got hard. My best days were always, I would either try to start the day with however many words. It would depend on the day. Some days it would be, I can write until noon before I have to do something, or I have to go to work. Or when I worked a 9 to 5, I would come home. And every day, like the 2 hours before dinner or before helping family or whatever, work on then. And then some days it would be do the 500 words. Doesn't matter how long, do the 500 words. It was always the find it where I can and make that effort where I can. And it's just been hard recently, but I know I have the muscle to get back into it once all the distractions of current life can kind of be set aside in a new environment. Because I can't haul all my crafts and all of my other stuff to Iceland,
Right.
Which is the other problem.
What I'm enjoying about your perspective on this is that you're not discussing the gap in your writing life as if it was a problem, but simply a fact of life. And I think too much of us, like, we shout from the rafters sometimes, writing schedule, the importance of the writing schedule. But life is more important than the writing schedule. And when it eclipsed it, what gave you the, I don't know, solace, confidence to know you were coming back?
Well, to say that there wasn't pure despondency and I shall commit seppuku for my lack of writing, as Lyndon can surely comment on. There was a lot of, oh my God, I'm not writing. But at a certain point, it was like, I'm still doing other creative things and I'm still busy and I just have other priorities. The other big thing was with launching these 4 books is 2 of these books were already self-published. And the other 2 were either already online or already written. But for this launch, I was agonizing to get all 4 of them up to the same level. So I went back and did.
Yeah, because the graphic design's been updated a little bit on them. On the whole, like the whole thing, so that now they feel of a piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was intentional. So we did the second edition of the first 2. So what writing work I have done the last year has been grinding through the edit.
Right.
And grinding through it. And I kind of just came to terms with, for now, I'm spending time on this. And when this is done, I will be able to go back to other projects. And there are other projects that are there that I can jump back into, whether I have to restart that draft or I can continue with that draft.
I think this is a question for Justin and this is a question for the whole room, really. This is for the whole room. When you are doing anything creative, there are peaks and valleys of how much energy, it takes a lot of energy. And when it goes away, I personally find that what you just described is like, oh, well, now I had to do the layout, the design, something that we call the ditch digging sometimes of a production. I find that labor to be so important to feeling connected to the whole effort when I have nothing left to give creatively. Like, well, there's nothing creative I can do anymore. So I'm just going to do all this bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's all part of having control of the project. Do you guys find a healthy relationship with the grinding gears of the backgrounds of your life that you have to just put that time back into when you're gone? Or is it feel like you're too far away from the project? Like, does it create distance or closeness? I personally find it creates some closeness. I cling to the closeness of I can't help the project, so I'll arrange stuff with the printer.
Yeah.
What about you guys? Right?
For me, it's distance because I've not touched some of these stories for so long because I was doing the grind, the ditch digging for them for so long. But when it comes to like that, I always say it's like the 30-50% dopamine drop in a creative project. And I've always struggled with it, but I can always tell through the experience of writing, I know the difference.
What do you mean by that? Like when the project is finished or wrapping up, the excitement of making it is gone, and now, yes.
When you're in a draft or you're working on a project and that excitement of making it and your disappointment in it is kind of forcing that dopamine drop where you're like, oh, do I really want to do this? I find I can tell through the experience of having gone through it so many times, through so many stories, I know when it's a struggle of I need a break and go and do ditch digging versus I need to bite down and have some discipline and get through it.
Mm.
And I do think that that's just an artist's skill, like noticing things for inspiration. Like that's just a skill of sometimes I need to just bite down and do it, and other times I know I need the break.
You think that's something you need to get better at by just doing it?
I've always found stuff like that, just like the pages themselves. When you were talking, Gregory, I was thinking in my mind of like I have a book that's nowhere near close to being finished yet, but I take time away from it to design the copyright page and the back of the book pages and the display that I plan on building once it's done. And all these things are like months away from like needing to be worked on. But yeah, one is taking a break of those drawing and those artistic muscles and working on something else for a while to give those a break. And two, just like everything else in the book, they're going to need a couple different versions. The first version is not going to be the best version of whatever that other thing is. And I find like I need to redo it 3 or 4 times before it's up to snuff. If I wait to work on those like non-artistic essentials and just the first pass is what gets in, it's not going to be as strong as if I build it up 2 or 3 times along the way of building the rest of the book.
Yeah. I have draft 11 on some things. I never put this is the final draft until it's the draft that is going to the copy editor. It is draft 1, 2, 3 and onwards.
See, and this part of my question for this is because we occasionally lovingly throw shade on Dan for like, when's the next version of your script coming in? When's the next version? But the space between is sometimes a gift.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I definitely feel that. And just because you didn't finish right then, it's okay. It's okay that you didn't finish right then.
Hey, guys.
And some years of toil and life and things can get in the way. And just knowing, almost like an old friend, right? Just knowing that there's this time you've invested in a thing that you can go and dust off and realize that you did this thing just for you and just for the sake of writing it.
I jumped out of a helicopter yesterday into the ocean and had a shark fight.
Listen, I was mentioning before, people who daydream too much, they're not content.
No, it was real. I really did.
Really? Then I'll put down Adrenaline Junkie. What kind of a shark? Was it like a...
Hey, Todd, I can't really talk right now. I'm on my way to a volcano.
I loved your description of your best writing times were not curated times.
I've done that. I've done it for years of, like, as I said, every hour after work.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it was the hour before work. It's people always say, oh, when I can find the time. It's never about finding time. You have to make time. And it's about everything in life. I've made the time to come here, even though I could be packing my household right now.
That's right. Yeah.
I make the time. And And sometimes I'm burning myself out, making the time for everyone.
Yeah.
That's also like, it's the kind of person I am. I want to make the time to do these cool things.
Right.
Do you carry, I see you carry around a notebook for the Dear Listener. Do you have like a notes app on your phone that you're constantly jotting down to as well? But like when you obviously can't sit and write, do you have a way to get those ideas down somewhere?
I don't love the notes on the phone. I do write some things on there, but I've kind of given up on writing. Also in the last 2 years, I just don't notice, or I'm not looking for inspiration quite the same level as I used to. Where before is I would not leave the house without a notebook.
Right.
Which I've known you guys for years. You guys aren't going anywhere without a notebook.
Yeah.
Unless it's specifically not that.
Yeah.
But I also don't go anywhere without a craft.
Yeah.
Or without like something to keep myself occupied, because ADHD, autism brain.
Co-conspirator and friend of the podcast, Chadwick Ginther, was working in the studio yesterday. And at a certain point, I thought he was packing up to go home. We were just having a quiet writing sprint, and he suddenly closes the laptop. He takes the cord, all of the body language of like, we're done with work today. I was like, oh, are you off? And he goes, oh, no. And he just puts his computer into his bag. He says, I'm just done with screens for a while. And he just takes his notebook out and he starts tinkering with the ideas in a different format. And it can be so freeing.
And that's actually one of the biggest things that helped my writing was I can't get the story to work, switch to writing it on the paper.
Longhand.
Longhand.
Yeah.
I can't, if a story I was poking at longhand isn't working, switch it to the computer. The reframing it is the help, not the particularities of either format.
Yeah. Susie Maloney, another friend of the podcast, a great writer and screenwriter, once told me, if you're having trouble, this was when I was asking her some advice about screenwriting. She said, oh, don't start it as a script. That's crazy. Write it as a piece of flash fiction first. And now it exists as flash fiction. And now you can mine that for the scene descriptions. And then you're not...
The snowflake method where you like do a small version, a bigger version, and you like spread out, and then each line has become a chapter.
That's right. Exactly right. Yeah. And you use it to sort of seed the efforts. And I find that my notebooks, the tangible, like, Justin and I are both doodling away here. We have 3 open notebooks. One has swords on it. That's Zach.
Well, now I'm kind of doing both.
I have a dinosaur being chopped apart by Vikings on my arrows. You've got these little leafy creatures.
Level 1 dungeon monsters.
Level 1 dungeon monsters. And these are just the way our hands are busy while we're having this conversation. But if you get it on paper, it allows, at least for me, the notebook becomes the way of collecting the pieces of the collage that may one day be the ingredients I need later. It's like stocking the fridge with all the ingredients for the thing you're trying to cook. You're checking the cupboard and, I do have that spice somewhere. I find that's where the notebooks come out.
And that's also kind of the point of the wrong side, the book of, because I know some of these stories are going to be whole books in their own right, or they were the origin point of a character.
If you don't get it down now, you may never.
And I was practicing at getting it down and getting it out there, and eventually they'll have consequences beyond that.
We were having Chadwick and I were having an interesting discussion yesterday about, I read a draft of a new story that he's doing for our shared world stuff, and I absolutely loved it. And there was a character in it that I said, oh, this character, just a tiny little side character. I love them. I don't know how you manage to make them so real on the page in just so few lines about them. And we had a really interesting discussion because he said, well, in an earlier draft, they were a huge part of the story. I've cut them back to just this little bit. And not knowing how much had been pared away, they seemed so real to me. And we were discussing that maybe them coming fully to life instead of existing in your mind as a background character, they had, Sonder. They had their own rich and full life on their own, which we just didn't see all of. Right?
There's a whole character in Wild Things that I'm like, the next writing project I'm excited for is taking one of the side characters from Wild Things, and she has her own whole series potential that I would love to explore. But before I did like the final drafts of Wild Things, I went and wrote the entire draft for that one character's.
Oh, interesting.
I did a whole book draft for that one character, and then I went back to Wild Things and did the edits.
And so switching from analog to digital, the beauty of then typing up all of those pieces is later when you're like, oh, I need to start a new draft of a story, or you get a call for an anthology or a short story, an idea. You have all this existing description, existing world building, turns of phrase that now you wrote. You get to essentially plagiarize from your own backlog, mine those assets. That's how we think about it, right? You're like, I made these clouds, I'm going to use these clouds forever.
And I'm like, I wonder who told me this 5 years ago at a workshop.
It may have been us. That does sound like something we would say, but we've learned it by learning it from other people. Everyone's standing on the shoulders of giants here.
It's the Winnipeg ecosystem, as I keep referring to it, but it is like, it's community, it's collaboration, it's relationships. That is the important stuff that makes the stuff so good.
I think one of the secrets to the Winnipeg art community is actually that Winnipeg is not quite big enough as a city. It's just big enough to have a little bit of every kind of scene, but it's small enough that those scenes only exist if people are parts of all of these different scenes. And so you end up with this amazing cross-pollination of all the different little bits. And so advice from screenwriters ends up in the poetry workshop. Advice from painters and weavers and sculptors end up at the music workshop. Like all that interplay is a result of people who are wanting to make stuff are seeking community, and that community can only be so big in a city of this size. It's just a large numbers game at a certain point, right? Toronto, it's a lot more insular. And we were talking to some Toronto creatives recently. It's a lot more insulated. If you're in the film industry, it's big enough that you only know people in the film industry. You never have to leave that island. You don't have to leave the island, yeah. And so I actually think one of the accidental lucky breaks that we've had as creatives is living in a city that's not all that big. It's been really good for...
and we have to be inside most of the year.
There's part of that too. Yeah.
I've never accepted the why is Winnipeg so creative? Because it's cold. We need to entertain ourselves. There's lots of places that are cold. So
you're going to one.
And I'm like, there needs to be more than just that. Yeah, that helps, but there's lots of warm, creative places too.
Yeah.
So what are the other feedback loops? Yeah. And I do think that you guys have also played an immense role in that.
Speaking of collaboration, each one of these books has a different artist doing the cover. Can you talk about the decision to work with these artists, how that went?
And how the artist at Black as Night was so difficult to work with?
That was easy.
Oh, what a jerk that guy. Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Gregory did book 2 as Black as Night as I've known this young lad for a while, and he's taking projects seriously. I'll do him one. I'll do him a cover. So, but there's been this sense to me that so much of genre fiction has kind of lost its identity in everyone has big bold letters with like a random thing on the cover, and there's very few works of art on covers anymore, in that Frank Frazetta, R.A. Salvador books, like where artists were commissioned to do this work, to create art that told and it was purely calculated. Here is a big violent fantasy book. If you like it, come read it. And same thing with like all of the old Stephen King book covers and all these classic stuff. So there was effort put into it. And there's this great video essay talking about how like horror books have lost their identity because they're all so polished and graphic designed to just being big letters on a cover. You can't tell what kind of books they are. So I made the decision: artwork, local artists, collaboration, and that will always be, whenever I'm self-publishing and I have that decision power, I will always make that decision.
It bears stating, before we dig into more of the design work on the cover, it bears stating that if you're working with a traditional publisher, it is very rare that the author has any say whatsoever on the cover design of the book. And let me just say, I think that's a good idea for the most part,
Mm.
right? Like there's the majority of people who have put their time and energy into the writing process.
Mhm.
They are good at that. And there are people who have put their entire lives into design processes, and you should let them be good at that.
Let artists cook.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But you mentioned earlier that one of the things you like about self-publishing is having that total, quote unquote, total control. But you gave up a lot of control on these covers. Like
I delegated control.
Okay, so let's talk about the difference between being a control freak and delegating control. And let's talk about my favorite cover. No shade on Steven or myself. And I'm not actually sure who did the wrong side cover.
A local guy named Paul Longchamp, just another local guy I worked with at a restaurant who was a graphic designer, and I handed him the collection of stories and said, pick one that you like and do the cover. And I was shocked at the one he picked.
Creepy as heck. But my favorite cover, shout out to Nico Rudolph's cover of Wild Things. He had it as he had it on display. Or did he? I saw a big version. Maybe you showed me the big version. But I got to go to him at a show and just say like, hey, by the way, best cover of the lot. And also what a level up in his just raw illustrative power recently.
I don't see a single bear in that illustration.
There's no bears.
But the thing is, bear was a core descriptor.
Okay.
Oh,
that's the
because it is kind of like the pose. You mean? Yeah.
Semi-aquatic.
Oh yeah, if you put a bear head there, that's almost a grizzly with a big.
Okay, so did you give Nico like a chapter to read? Did you give the entire book? Was the book even done yet? At what point did you contact him, and what did you give him to go?
It was done, and when I first started these projects, Nico was one of the people I tried getting in contact first. Just because we had mutual friends, I had heard of him, I liked his work, I love dinosaurs. And the timing didn't work out. But then when I knew that it was going to be Wild Things is the barbarians and dinosaur book, the big kaiju monster on the front cover, it has to be Nico. Nico's is the one that needs to do it. And we were
see his other dinosaur work at the Drumheller
exactly
store, yeah.
And Drumheller is such a deep part of my origin story.
Really?
Because I was born in Calgary, so that was.
Did you know that Nico had worked there, or have you picked up his work there, or is this just a happy coincidence right now?
Happy coincidence. Because it's like, guys, I know I look young. I'm 30. Like we're talking the 90s when I would be taken there as a child.
Right.
But Nico got all the descriptions. See, I gave him the whole story, but I don't think he read the whole story. And I think I just gave him the descriptions.
In defense of busy artists, authors, they won't read your novel.
Dads as well.
Yeah, and dads and whatever. They can't read your novel because if they're doing 10 covers that year and having a life, they're not reading 10 novels that they didn't pick.
Exactly.
Right? They want some artistic design choices presented to them that they can extrapolate from.
Eldos, yo! Eldos! Yes! What does that mean? Erection! 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 Erection? Yes! No! Eruption! Eruption! Yes!
I am not a great artist in my own assessment of myself, but I can draw well enough to convey what I mean in a meaningful way to other artists who can then take it to the next level.
Right.
But because me and Nico are both dinosaur boys, we were able to go back and forth and be as specific as possible. So whereas with you, I was or private detective, and you went off and you had some cool ideas. Nico was like, I want specifically, what is this monster? What does it look like? What is the inspiration? And trying to script the line is is it Godzilla? Is it a crocodile? Is it a mosasaur? Trying to not fall into basic tropes and trying to convey what the story says. And not I'm in big agreement that stories are advertising. They don't need to reflect the story exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But Nico wanted to make sure that the monster was, because it was such a big part of the cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, that always annoyed me as a child when I picked up a fantasy book that had something really epic on the cover that never appeared in the book in any way, shape, or form. Feels a little misleading.
Okay, well, let's discuss that for a moment. Let's not jump over that. It is the job of the cover to make you pick up the book.
But if you have dragons on that cover,
and
dragons were never mentioned in the entire story,
Like,
get out of here.
You guys know, I'm on your side. I also think that's bullshit. But I'm now just defending books as a notion, right? Like, it's hard out there.
It is.
Yes.
And so whatever gets someone to be like, I've had this argument presented to me. In fact, recently from a publisher that said, like, we're going to have a different person do the cover. They're going to design a cover element, the job. And I was like, it's a little disingenuous to not let the person who did the interior art do the exterior art. And they said, no, our job is to sell the book. Do you want us to sell the book? Then we're going to do our job selling the book. We think we can sell the book better this way. And you have to uncouple from the control. What was the phrase you used? You
delegate.
Delegate. You have to delegate that control to a person who says, I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to carry it. Oh, it's terrifying and frustrating and anger inducing, but it's also necessary.
Yeah, and I had because as much as I cared about the creative control, I also knew when to make compromises, knowing it would make a better product. Hence, going to you and being like, hey, Orc Private Detective. And you went off and did something really cool.
Wait, I'm today years old when I realized, that's the same sword on both these covers?
It's the same character.
That is the same character doing... Oh, I see what's happening here.
And the thing is, the fact that it took that long to notice means it's doing its job because it's not easily identifiable. So it's giving the suggestion of the continuity.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Well, and because they're not, I haven't seen them laid out together like this to see that. And I know that they're themed very differently. And if we just talk for a minute about the design features of the cover of Black as Night, because it was a detective noir story, those evoke all the images that a graphic designer would normally make the list of and throw away.
Yes.
Right? Which are the blinds, the fedora, the crowded office space. Right? We've all seen that a million times. But because we're also now adding an element that is unknown in that space, which is that it's an orc, right? It's like a monstrous, like ogreish looking creature. Well, now I had to go back and in order to make this work, I had to make that checklist. Well, going to be the blinds, going to be the hands, going to have the gun, and then he's going to be something that we don't normally associate with the noir thing, which is this monstrous big... The one bit of thing that I hadn't seen done before was him opening the blinds with the barrel of the gun and peeking out the window like that.
Like classic movies. At one point or another, that somebody opens the blinds with
a gun, right?
Yeah, as the shootout's about to start.
Right? Like that's what I wanted. And then
I don't want to watch them. Let's Assault on Precinct 13.
Exactly. And so then the notion of he's been in this position before.
Yeah.
I pitched you the idea of the notches on the gun.
I was going to ask about that. Right? That was a story element or an artist.
That's a him element.
Yeah.
But again, it's the advertising for the story. Like in the story, it's like a very specific sci-fi gun. It can be a 45 on the cover. It's not making a difference because it's getting people excited about it.
Well, this was my low key way of getting up to the fact that it's not a dragon. So did I do you dirty here? There's no gun like this in that story.
Everyone thought it was Shrek for a long time, but people have stopped saying that, which is very
thought it was
funny.
Shrek.
I don't see that.
I see Leprechaun.
Yeah,
or a little bit of Leprechaun. I put the Band-Aid on his nose as a direct reference to Chinatown,
which is in the early drafts of the story, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Because in early drafts of the story, he gets taken and tortured, but it doesn't happen in the final version, but it's perfect for the character.
Yeah.
So you often contact the artists when you're still finishing the book up. It's not completely finished before you get into the cover.
With these being long ongoing processes, figuring out it could have been at any point in the process. I think with Bloodied it was largely done, and it was hey Stephen,
Stephen Tall did the cover.
Do you think you might want to do this? And Stephen's reaction was, I don't know if I can do a Frazetta cover, and he knocked it out of the park.
So.
Well, it's interesting because it doesn't evoke Frazetta right away to me.
Because it is his own style.
Yeah.
And neither does Nico's necessarily, but there's still structurally Frazettic covers.
Yeah. the pile of something under the hero who's waiting for the next bad thing to happen.
Or like waiting into the battle and like screaming with the cloak flaring behind them. Like he took it to the next level where my closeness with the story would have made that worse.
Yeah.
I can give some suggestions because the original version, all of like the little minions that she's fighting were very traditional fantasy. I said, make them Mad Max, make them steampunk, like make it not your traditional fantasy dwarves.
I really like the unified elements of the back cover design. It's very simple, very plain, and you have this little inset window that has a pull element from so the illustration. Yeah, Justin noticed something.
He had extra.
Okay.
He was the one that was like, hey, I have extra. You want more? And I was like, yes.
Did a little bit of extra work for his too. Yeah, so mine has, but there's this, I think back cover design is often overlooked as an important element for getting people to look at the book, figure out what it is.
Mostly pull quotes, and like maybe they'll talk about the story.
That's right.
A lot of times.
Or it's so busy
that you can't tell what the story
that you can't tell what the story is. And so I like your choice here to just really quickly and briefly sum up the story, which seems like a no-brainer. Like that used to be all that the backs of books were, but now they're so cluttered,
so rare. And this is me intentionally going, some modern trends are not helping. Let's go back.
Yeah. Now, whether they help or not, right? It is hotly debated, but it's nice to have a clear vision carried through on all the covers. That's a really nice
and that's why we made the decision to republish Bloodied and Black as Night, because there was me and Chloe, like we've gotten a little bit better in this and a little bit better in this, and if we just redo them all from scratch, which was a lot of work, like my long-suffering graphic designer, it got them all to that consistent level where they look, as you said, a piece.
So what's next?
I'm like, Iceland. I'm going to be busy in school, but I will be writing. And if Iceland wasn't happening, I would be bugging you guys going, so how do you do grant applications?
Well, you can, Jonathan's, oh no, he's
gone.
Jonathan's over there. That's how we do grant applications.
So you brought it up, but that was the plan. And then Viking school.
Yeah, Viking school. I think that's perhaps a more noble pursuit is Viking school. But no, the what's next though is now you've got these are not just books that the publisher is responsible for. These are books that you are responsible for.
Yes.
And so what's next for getting those books in more places? If someone is in Winnipeg right now,
where can you get them?
Where can you get them?
You can get some at Ravens End Books. They have their beautifully simple consignment plan, which I believe most of us are all.
I think we're all.
Yeah, we're
one way or another.
One way or another.
Yeah.
You can get them on Amazon, which, despite my best efforts, is still the most convenient and cheapest way to self-publish books. So you can order them on Amazon. Just if you search my name or the Veiled Sagas, they're the first things that pop up. And then I will be selling some this weekend at the Artburg Agricultural Fair. Of all places.
Of all places.
Because I will also be selling my Viking reenactment wares, which is a whole subject we haven't discussed. But that'll be another episode.
How are we doing for time, Dave?
Yeah, we're almost done, actually.
We're almost done.
That'll be another episode.
So we'll tease the idea that you have a big pile of Viking reenactment gear.
Yes. And then I will be doing a table at Raven's End the following weekend. I believe we're going to be doing it on the Saturday, the 25th. And then I will be at the Icelandic Festival doing my usual yearly Viking Village thing, where I am one of the coordinators to help get the village running as best as it can. And I will have books with me, but there will primarily be me selling my wares.
In December, Reykjavik has a Comic-Con. Please go and tell us how it is.
That is a brilliant idea, and I should do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, boots on the ground. Reykjavik
Yes.
Yes.
I went on vacation to Iceland, and I missed the Comic-Con by like a week, and I kind of...
Honestly,
I was super curious.
That is a great idea. But I may...
Studio trip.
That's an expensive. Yeah.
Well, you will hopefully have my couches. Studio trip to Iceland. I have to go to Iceland.
You do. Yeah.
I do. I do have to go to Iceland. I do have to bring my sons to Iceland.
Yeah. There you go. Start off with a comment or end it with a comment.
Yeah. Maybe we'll build a long ship and sail there.
Well, that's my plan.
Part of the grand tradition.
Just go back and
Grand
forth,
family
back
tradition.
and forth.
So you've got 4. It's not, let's just say, it is not an insignificant task to write any book.
Mm-hmm.
It is impressive to have continued to write despite the many adversities that you have o'erleaped, and also to then return to the work renewed, to redesign it, to re-release it, to make it available, to work with a store to have it on consignment. Do you have it on McNally's consignment system?
No, I have not. I did give it to them and I never heard back.
Okay, so
But we'll see what happens next.
that's right. Persist with them. These are important things. There are a number of stores like Raven's End cropping up all over this great nation and the world. Independent booksellers are having a marvelous resurgence because the means at which that they can get at the niche markets that they want product for. The future has arrived as far as that goes. It's not evenly distributed, the future, but it has arrived in a few places. And
enough people are looking at the world and going, to entertain myself, I need something weird and niche and particular. And that is exciting. And hopefully it's one of the things that will survive all of our trials and tribulations.
So true. Well said. I would like to take this opportunity to wish you the best of luck in your next adventures.
Thank you all.
And this has been Super Pulp Science. I am TMB Kamichuk, encouraging you all to join the fight and make comics.